What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the SharkNation podcast. We've got a really, really good friend here today. Jason and I are back. We've got Bryan Reilly with us on the show. Excited to have you, brother. How's life?
What's up? I'm excited to be here. I can't believe it took you guys this long to invite me.
That's true.
The perks of joining EXP. We get you immediately
yeah.
easy to sign up. We book you. Just brand agnostic.
You could have maybe got me sooner if I would have known that I was going to get invited onto the podcast.
Only the best.
You're official now. That's the only way you know you've made it in real estate is if you're on this podcast. That's only
it. This is it. You guys have had some pretty high caliber guests on here, so
yes, sir.
I'm excited.
Joining the club. Yeah, no, we're excited to have you on here. You become a good friend. Obviously, I recently partnered with us at EXP, but we want this to be valuable for anybody that's listening. We met, we met years back in Pittsburgh, but we all three got together in Dallas a few years back. So I'm excited to revitalize this conversation here.
Yeah.
So I think it's best to just dive into it, get the audience to get some value. Obviously we'll hear a little bit about your backstory through this, but let me start with saying, like, you've been in the business for how many years now?
Over 9. So I'm going into 10.
So 9. Okay. Going into 10. What's one thing you would say that has always it's always found a way to success for you? Like, what's the one non-negotiable thing that, whether it was year 1, year 5, or year 10, what would that thing be?
Yeah. I find myself telling new agents who are getting into business this, like, on a daily basis, right? Day one. Let me back up. Let me digress. So I was blessed because what a lot of agents don't get when they get into the business is the principles, right? It takes them years to figure it out. And that's if they kind of fumble their way around long enough to actually stay in the business without going broke and having to leave and go get another job, right? I was blessed that from the very first meeting that I sat down with a mentor and said, I don't know anything about real estate. How do I get started? Will you guys even take me? Like, what does this take? And they said, there was a couple different people that I talked to, but this was kind of the message that I got out of those conversations was, you can make a really good living in real estate if you're willing to sit down and talk to people, make calls for 2 to 3 hours a day. And at the time when I heard that, I was like, what am I supposed to do with the other 7 hours a day? Because I'm working a lot more than that now, and I'm not making the kind of money these people are talking about. What I didn't know was, that most people hear that probably and then get in the business and just don't do it. I got day one, got my license approved, like on the PALS website. Oh my God, it's approved. I already had a list printed out. I don't even remember where I got it. Somebody gave me a list of phone numbers. Start calling, right? Do you want to sell your house? I didn't have a script. I didn't have nothing. Do you want to sell your house? And on that list that I sat in my basement in my house in Westview and I manually dialed down that list, I set one listing appointment on the first day in the first probably 2 hours of having that license. So that has never gone away. It looks a little bit different in terms of the tools and the having scripts and all of that stuff. But that has never gone away, and it's
like
proven to be true time and time again.
It's like going to the casino and you hit the first time you ever go to the casino, and then you get the itch. It's like, oh, this is easy.
And then you're stuck. Yeah,
you're stuck there. Did you start off full time or part time?
I started off part time.
Part-time, so you can be successful starting off on part-time. I always get that question all the time, and it's like, what you put into real estate is what you're going to get out of it. So I started part-time too.
Me too.
But you have to kind of scrap out the hours of when you're going to actually make that commitment to work another job. It's easy to have your license and say, okay, well, I'm not going to do it. Or, I'll do it for an hour here or an hour there. That's not the game with our industry. You have to commit to it, and, it's a hustle. It's a grind. You have to put in the hours and actually treat it like a job. How'd you do that for working your full-time job and getting into real estate? Like, what was the lessons learned there? How'd you kind of transition?
So going back and thinking about it, I mean, I guess that first day it was a weekend. It was a Saturday. So maybe in my mind it was the first day. I literally went right from the computer and it checked my license status and went right down into the basement. But whatever the case was, that was a weekend. That was a Saturday. That was my first opportunity to hit it, and I did. Um, I had weekends and I had evenings, and I knew what I was doing. Like, I wanted to get out of that other job. I wanted to make real estate full time, and I wanted to do it as quickly as possible. Um, so I was just motivated by that to do everything that I could. So, I was I mean, long story short, I would work until 4:30 and then I would come out and I had that list sitting on the passenger seat of the car. And before I would pull out of the parking lot of the office or of the shop where I was working at, uh, I would sit there and call down that list until, whatever, I ran out of numbers or it got too dark in the parking lot. And, I don't know, I got scared of the dark, I guess. I don't know. Eventually I would leave I mean, my coworkers would all be gone, and a couple of them would come and knock on the window like, "Are you okay? Why are you sitting in your car in the parking lot?" Um, and I just sat there and made those calls in the evenings before I even left the parking lot, of that job, and then again on the weekends. And then obviously quickly that turns into, like, actually scheduling appointments and, having to handle all of those. By the time I went full time, it was like, I'm so busy with appointments and showings that I don't have time to lead generate. I need 7 to 4:30 back, like, I need that time so that I can, do lead generation for 2 or 3 hours in the morning and 2 or 3 hours of, whatever transaction coordination or whatever I needed to do in the afternoon.
That's kinda what I tell, agents that are just starting. You're working a full-time job now, and I say, "Great." You know why? Because most people are usually working 9 to 5. So what you're available when people aren't working, which is good for you to start nights and weekends, just like you said, the earliest that you could get into it, and when people are available, that's when you're calling. You're gonna set yourself up for success, but when people get into it and they say, "Oh, well, I don't wanna call nights, and I don't wanna call weekends." It's like, "Well, when do you plan on being an agent? During your regular job hours?" Or you know what I mean? But people won't commit to doing the extra grind after their W-2 job, and that's where the conflict is.
Or they say they will, and then when the road, it does, the talking and walking are obviously 2 very different things, and, it's really shown with that, like, I mean, I can yeah, so many people get into this business and they say they'll do that, and then when they're actually faced with the hours in front of them, it's like, well, that you know or what we were talking about this morning, they're not really, really clear on their personal world and what's required there.
Yeah.
Like, they say, "Yeah, I'll do that," but then they forget that their spouse or kids or get they can't, and maybe they shouldn't, you
Yeah,
know?
and that was one of the part-time agents that I got. I'm like, "Okay, well, let's kinda map out and see what your schedule looks like before we both commit to it, because it's gonna be a big commitment for me as your team leader, and you're gonna be holding me responsible for your results. I wanna make sure that you have the time available to be able to hit those commitments. So what do you got going on?" "Well, I work 2 jobs and then I have 4 kids." I'm like, "Well, when do you plan on being an agent?" You know what I mean? You can't sacrifice everything.
Yeah,
When
yeah.
are you
To
gonna
be to be fair, I had 2 jobs and 4 kids when I did it. So, but I carved out the time.
You've gotta earn your keep. You've gotta carve out your piece. Like, I joined a brokerage that, most of the agents there were selling 20 homes a year or so, whereas the previous brokerage, first brokerage I joined did not. And I was like, "Man, how am I if these agents this one's doing 40, this one's doing 30, how am I? How is little old Chad gonna get it?" But, like you did, like, we get to carve that piece out. Like, you gotta have a little bit of, yeah, just, like, unashamed, "I'm making this freaking work, period," that drive. I don't know, yeah, I don't know how you
Well, you have to sacrifice for it. Like, don't tell me you don't have enough time, dude. I was covering from Chicago East half the country, and I'm still trying to carve out time of when I'm going to be showing a house and trying to figure out, well, if I land from Miami to Philly and then I get back at 3, then I could show at 4 and all that kind of stuff. It's like,
That's wild, yeah.
yeah, it was insanity for those couple of years as I built my business up.
I think that's the tough thing too, right? Because as where we're all at now with growing our teams and mentoring agents and bringing people bringing people into the business, but then mentoring them once they get in too. It's a tough thing. Like, I know teams that will only take full-time agents. I'm always skeptical of somebody that comes in and they're like, "Yeah, I'm full-time. I have no I'll be full-time with real estate. I have no other like obligations or commitments." It's like, First of all, if you have no other obligations or commitments, why are you even doing this, right? Show me somebody with, 2 jobs and 4 kids, that's somebody, and not to, like, toot my own horn, it could be 3 kids, it could be whatever, right? But, like, that person's they've got a purpose, like, I know how expensive it is to feed 4 mouths, like, that in and of itself will keep you working. The fact that they're already working 2 jobs shows you that they're willing to do more than what most people are willing to do with the one. Um, Not that I think that even with that, I mean, that's not gonna be perfect either, but that it's a really tough thing. I was a mentor agent for a company, um, for a time, and I had, they only accepted full-time agents, and they were like, "Here's 13 brand new full-time agents. We want you to take them and teach them the ropes." And out of that 13, none of them were actually full-time. Like Chad said, or like you guys just said, stay-at-home parent, like, got it by the time they get the kid on the bus, and then they got another kid that's gotta get on this bus, and then they gotta go and pick up the dry cleaning and do the groceries, and then, get home and fold the laundry and then get the kid off the bus, whatever it is, realistically, they have, like, 20 minutes a day that they could dedicate to real estate. I've seen people do a lot with 20 minutes a day too, but if they don't need to, if they don't have that obligation or that commitment to really do it, some people just don't wanna say, I'm unemployed or I'm a stay-at-home parent or whatever it is. Not that there's anything wrong with that. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. If that's what you are, own it. Some of these people don't want to own it. They're like, I'd rather put real estate agent on that application, right, at the kid's school when I'm joining the PTA and it says, "What do you do for a living?" They'd rather put real estate agent than unemployed on that line. And that's really their sole motivation or their primary motivation, even subconsciously, of course, of like why they're in the business. Like, they gotta want something out of it.
I'll
So
play well, I was gonna say, I'll play devil's advocate because we were just talking about that today, where if you have that backup plan and that fallback with that other income that's coming in, it's a lot harder to, have the passion for it because sometimes you rest on your laurels. If you have guaranteed income from one job, estate will come when it comes, and you don't kinda have that burn the boat mentality as, "This is my only thing that I'm doing, and this is all I'm gonna focus on, and this gotta work because there is no plan B." So having that plan B for me is kinda just like, yeah, so but I get it. I'm with you. I think that you should have a part-time job as your part-time job income's here, your real estate income's here, and as you get the boat close to the dock, then make the jump.
well, I think everything we're saying, it all just comes down to getting clear. Like, with like, who are you? What are you about? What are you doing? Why are you doing this? What time do you have dedicated to it? Are you actually gonna use that time? Or are you full of it? You know what I mean? Like, that's what it comes down to. And, we all made a decision, and we were gonna be successful no matter what. Brian, you made that decision, and you had the right mentorship that led you in the right direction. How'd it work out? Like, how was the first couple years in the business?
Well, I'm here, right? So it worked out.
Made it.
It
On this
worked out. It got
podcast.
us
That's the only
I'm
way you
on this
know.
podcast, right? I mean, I
If you didn't make it on
the
here, you didn't freaking make it
the
yet.
bar was pretty high, so it must have worked out.
That's the goal he
Um,
set when he started. He's like, "SharkNation
It
podcast."
didn't even exist. He's still
that
like,
was
"This
it.
fucking guy."
2016. I'm gonna quit this job and get on the Shark Nation podcast. I don't even know if podcasting existed back then.
Oh, it did. I did it years before that, but that's a whole nother. Go ahead.
So yeah, I mean, 15 months into the business, I walked away from that other job. I was at a point where, I had enough pending sales going on, and I, closed enough sales at that point where I was super busy, and I wasn't able to do that transaction coordination and do all the showings and do all the listing appointments and the lead generation. Right, lead generation had probably already started slipping at that point. And for whatever reason, I guess I was smart enough to know, like, even though I'm super busy right now, I still need that lead generation. And got to a point where it was like I was exhausted and something else needed to give. And it was like, all right, I got to walk away from something here. I had a job where I was making $73,000 a year, union sheet metal shop, good benefits, good job. and everybody told me every single day what a great job it was, but I never enjoyed it. I never felt fulfilled, and I was living paycheck to paycheck. That's why I was working 2 jobs, and, I had to go out and drive Uber just to get the $500 to pay for the classes, right? And then the company that I joined, they said, "We'll pay you back. We'll reimburse you with your first 2 sales." I was like, "I'm getting reimbursed. I'm getting my $500 back," right? Obviously, 15 months in, I was well beyond that point. I remember looking at the pipeline. I'm like, I've got, whatever it was, 9 or 10 transactions getting ready to close here in the next 5 or 6 weeks. I'm going to make like $60,000 off of this in the next 5 or 6 weeks. And I'm working at a job where for the rest of the year, this was in March of, 2018, I guess. I'm like, the rest of this year, I'm not going to make $60,000. So do I quit real estate or do I quit the other job? And at that point, I mean, the decision was kind of easy, right? It was scary still, like walking away from the benefits and the security and all of that, but it was like, even if I don't sell another house the rest of this year, this is the move to make. And then I'll just spend the rest of this year figuring out how I'm going to make money next year, which, of
Was in a
course, we did good. Yeah.
I was gonna say I was in a similar situation, right? So I was working my W-2 job, six-figure job, doing the real estate, had a bunch of pending transactions, and it's funny how prospecting and lead generation is always the first thing that we don't have time for. The thing that got you there, right? Uh, if we knew. But let's talk about that because I don't think people dig deeper on that. How'd you get your wife on board or your spouse on board for making that kind of move? It's a conversation that you need to have, right?
Yeah.
You're doing
Yeah.
what? And everybody else, if everybody tells you you're crazy, you're onto something.
Yeah.
Most times, yeah.
Well, yeah. For me,
That's, yeah. I mean, that's a very real thing. Like, she supported me in the decision. And by supported me, I mean, obviously, we're still married. Beyond that, though, I don't know, how comfortable she really was with it, even to the point where, like, yeah, we made $111,000 that year, but I remember like tax return coming up the next year and like owing money for taxes and health insurance had run out, so we were paying for health insurance and her saying something like, "I wish you would have never quit that job," and me being like, are you looking at how much money we made? Like, we can pay for the health insurance ourselves." And I mean, I'll be honest, just with the timing of everything, I don't know, maybe it's God's timing. I remember COVID happened. And even up to that point, it was like, "Oh my god, did I make the worst mistake ever? The housing market is shut down. I'm not gonna make any money for 2 months." And, we, that company that I was with, the department that I was working in, that I was kinda getting promoted and rising through the ranks and spent most of the 12 years working in this one department with this one company, um, which was unusual. Again, it was a union job, but we don't have to get into those details. It was unusual, but that was me, like, that was where I had established myself. And that department went under during COVID. Like, we used to make water park parts for slides and stuff like that. We had big jobs with, like, Universal Studios and some big Six Flags thing they were making in New Jersey that I don't even know if they ever finished. It was like a humongous job, not just a water park. It was like a Mall of America, and it was gonna have a water park inside. I don't even know if that thing exists. I never heard about it again because during COVID, it was like, where nobody's coming to water parks, nobody's going to the mall. We're on lockdowns, cancel all these jobs, cancel all these projects. And so I would have been sitting at home with no income either way, probably. Um, but of course, we came out of that and, there was really no looking back after that point.
so you're dumb like me. You left at COVID. That's when I left, and my wife's like, you realize they shut everything down, right? And like, but I was still kind of transitioning. I gave my boss like 6 months notice before I'm leaving. I'm like, you tell me whenever, but I'll give you as much time as you want. I'm doing both, so
Yeah.
if you need me to backfill or train or whatever. But yeah, it was 2020, and then it's like, oh yeah, we're shut down. We don't know when it's gonna start back up. And my wife's like, that's when you decide that, yeah, you're a real genius starting right here, Jay. I'm like, this ain't starting
Yeah.
on the right track.
So I had stepped away from that job in March of 2018. So it was almost 2 years later actually. But I guess and I'm just processing this in my head because that's such a good question that I never really like thought about it. Like in terms of how I could sit here and kind of like summarize it here with you guys on this podcast. Like it was probably the better part of that entire 2 years and the upheaval of life as we knew it anyway that really helped her to become comfortable with it.
Still working on getting Brittany
getting the
comfortable with it.
buy-in.
Yeah, I mean, she's obviously
Me
evolved.
too, to a degree. Yeah, I don't. She doesn't think I should go back to that job anymore because it doesn't
Right.
exist. But that's
It's every day,
it's
yeah.
a daily thing. Yeah,
And I have this terrible trait where I'm always about to blow up, every day, every week. Brit, we just get this one thing right, and we're gonna, and I'll tell you what, she put it in my birthday card this year. You know, I know you're always about to blow up or something. It pissed me off. Like this next year, we're gonna be blown up, so you can't write that shit in my card.
I
Anyways,
think that's real though too. I was even thinking about it when Jason, when you asked me that question a minute ago, like the amount of time and money that I was taking away from my family, like that sacrifice right there to even get the license, to get started in the business, like there was no giving up 6 months in and being like, all right, I tried it, it didn't work. Sorry, honey. Like that wasn't an option. Like I would it just wasn't even an option. Like I don't even know what that would have looked like at that point. I mean, I was gonna fail and hit rock bottom, and she was gonna leave me like in the pit of despair before I was gonna give up. With everybody watching, right? When I say everybody, I mean my family, um, primarily my wife. So that was, I mean, that was a big part of it too. And that's the other thing I think about, like the people that get into this that are full time, and maybe they have some savings, right? Maybe they've got 6 months saved up, whatever. Um, to me, having that savings as a fallback is even like worse than the full time job. But the other part of it is from like day one, that clock is ticking and they've got their eyes on it. And they're like, is this going to work? Is this going to work? Like, at what point should I start interviewing for other jobs? Because I know I've got 6 months worth of expenses, but it might take me 2 months. And now they have that doubt in the back of their mind. And, that every time somebody hangs up on them, they're like, is this it? Is that was this the sign that I should, cut it short right now? Like, um, and it's just that like impending timeline in the back of their head the whole time that they're trying to stay out ahead of, right? Because nobody wants to get 6 months in and then go, okay, I said I was going to give it 6 months. It's been 6 months. I quit. And now I'm going to go start thinking about another job. Like, no, it's burning in the back of their mind that entire, whether it's 6 months, 3 months, whatever it is. Like, I mean, you guys have probably been there before. I know when I write like a big check for some new tech or some new subscription service or something like that. And I'm like, it's a 1 year contract. In my mind, I'm like, I'm going to start making money off this thing in the next 60 days. Otherwise, I can't even afford it. And then I'm tapped out at that point, right? So you make that 12-month commitment, but in the back of your mind, really, it's like you're giving it 6 weeks. And I think that's what a lot of people do with real estate when they get in that position.
Yeah. When I got in, it was a fire on my ass. There was no going back, and I wanted to prove all the doubters, all the ones that are like, "What are you doing? You're crazy. Go back to your job and just be comfortable." I'm like, I use that as fuel. And then, like you said, other options, like we were just talking before the show about hitting the mega icon thing. So I have to write a check for 56 grand if they sell zero houses or we sell 5 million houses. If we don't hit our company cap, that's real money that's on the line, right? So that's another thing that lights a fire. Like, okay, we're definitely going to do it because I'm not gonna be the one that's cutting a check. Now it's personal, me versus, Uncle EXP. I ain't cutting him a check for any of that difference, so now we gotta make it work. So I like having that kinda I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's a constant risk taking. I'm laughing when you're talking about how we probably still feel it, Brian. Like when you sign up for stuff, like, yeah, I'm like, yeah, I probably felt it yesterday, 5 days ago, 8 days ago, 2 months ago, and then 3 months. Yeah, like it. I'll always love the say, if you don't want to throw it all away and go work at McDonald's at least once a week, you're not doing it right. But so what we've pulled from this is you have to have a chip on your shoulder. You've got to be stubborn as hell and a psychopath.
Pretty
to be
much, yeah.
Which I have all of the 3, so it's
The
worked.
entrepreneurial spirit.
No, it's good, but it's real, and, like, that's and it and you and anybody listening, if they are, they hear it on the thing, it it's not like when you're sitting there at 11 PM or 1 AM looking at the bank account when no one else is talking to you, like, you either felt that or you haven't, and you either make it through it or you don't, and there's no, like, I don't know, there's, like, no fair warning. It's like having a kid. Everybody always says, like, "You just don't know what it's like until you do," and that's it's the truth in the negative way.
The
Obviously,
nurse hands you the basket and it's like, "Okay, here you go," and you're like, "Oh, alright,
it
now
is
shit's getting real."
that is I don't a lot of people there's a lot of everybody's, opinions are like assholes. Everybody's got one, right? But that was the one with having kids where they say, you just don't know what it's like till you do. And I was like, I get it though. I get the idea. And so I was like, "Did you have your first kid?" And yeah,
Yeah.
that's a feeling. And this is the opposite of that. but on the other side of things, you found success as a solo agent. Why start a team?
Um, for me, I think it was probably the same reason a lot of people do, honestly. It was the, like, next step in the progression, right? I didn't do this just to get out of that $70,000 a year job. I wanted to build something, like, bigger and better than that job would ever even allow me to do, or any job would allow me to do. I think I was selling 50 homes by myself. Um, I knew, fortunately, I followed the model where it was like your first hire should be an assistant. If you don't have an assistant, you are the assistant. And I know that because my first hire was an assistant, and then, like, immediately a week after, I was like, "Oh, well, I have an assistant. I might as well go out and start recruiting some agents now." Um, the mistake was, like, 4 months later, the assistant quit, and then I was back to being the assistant for myself and the agent, or agents on my team. Um, but, it was just it was the next step in the progression. It was the next chapter. I mean, I was ready to help other people do it. I knew I couldn't, continue to, uh just keep taking on clients and showings and appointments and doing the lead gen and all of those things. It was like to put me right back to where I was at the beginning. Like, there's nothing else I can quit. I need to add something. I need to bring somebody else on. Of course, that there's parts of that now at this point, 6 years looking back, or seven, maybe, yeah, 7 years looking back, of having a team. Yeah, there's there's a lot of, things that you don't think about with that you are adding and taking away and vice versa, but, I mean, that was kinda it for me. It wasn't like a hard thing. It was the next step in the progression.
Yeah, well, and I think, well, at least what I found was it takes a very different skill set, and no one talks about that enough. They talk about it, the progression, but they don't talk about the different skill set that it requires. And uh, yeah, if you don't get the right people around you, or at least in my experience, I didn't get the right people around me, and I put bandages over some of those skill sets, and it worked for a little while until it doesn't.
So do
That's
you think it's really skill sets, or do you think it's something else? Because I think we also, like, we've talked about this before a million times, I think we all look at, like, the similarities between growing a team and growing a real estate business, right? Recruiting for agents to be on our team versus, prospecting for buyers and sellers to buy and sell houses,
what was the exact question though? Is the skill set or what?
or something else other than skill set.
I really think it's leadership, yeah, and I know we are leaders with the buyers and sellers we have, or maybe I should say leadership in a group setting,
Mm,
or leadership in partnership as opposed to
mm,
service, and that's yeah, like, well, and then the simple dynamic, and we hear this with Cheplack, is, we think that the agent as a team owner is our customer, and 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 that is the case with a buyer or seller, and it's not the case with a team. It's a partnership, and so that's a big aspect of it. But yeah, I mean, but I really, really, the simplest of it is hinging on leadership, where you've got to go super deep with it when you're a team leader. It's literally the definition of your role. And I don't think I've been through different leadership training here, and I don't think there's very much and very, very like 5% or less is very effective leadership training because
Right.
yeah, it's just there's a lot of fluff out there, and, so that's from yeah, finding the real ones in leadership, the ones that aren't yeah, that's the tough part
Yeah,
of it.
not trying to sell you a shiny object, right? I think the progression, like you said, is going from you're so busy as a solo agent that you just need people to take stuff off your plate. So here, it's usually a buyer agent. Hey, take some of these showings or whatever, and it's kind of I call it like a glorified referral network. Hey, take this lead. If they take it, give me a percentage of it, and it's not really a team, right? And then you have okay, skill sets that transfer. Like you said, you know, as the agent job, what they need to do. But could you communicate that to somebody else and
Mhm.
make them comfortable and train them up on what you know?
Transferring a
Can
skill
you
set, huh?
transfer your knowledge,
Yeah.
skills,
Yeah.
and all that kind of stuff to somebody else?
Boy, what a task that is sometimes, huh?
Yeah, and then
Yeah,
that
I
just
guess
adds
that's
to
the
your
yeah, I guess that's it.
expectations,
Yeah.
right? Because we know what to do. We think that we told them what to do, but maybe you didn't communicate it well.
Well, and they're not us, like, it came natural to us in our way, in the way that we learned it. I mean, it might have taken a grind, but, like, yeah, how are they that's where Carmen stuff a lot of times is
Yeah,
just wow, because like, yeah, we're just like, "I do it this way, why can't you? Like, I just showed you, I just did the call.
yeah,
You can't just do that? Like, what's wrong with you?"
yeah.
Uh,
I always say, you train an animal, you teach a human, right? We always have all these trainings and trainings and trainings, but are they comprehended? That's why I like Carmen's stuff because it's application in the field. It's not just theory. Okay, well, you should do this, you should do that. No, it's here's how to do all that.
yeah. It's
I think part of it too, what I start to think about is, how we learned, how we were trained or taught to be leaders. And, for most of us, when we started a team, I'll just speak for myself. For myself, when I started my team, the model that I was following was like the brokerage, right? So how was the broker manager acting? How were they recruiting? How were they leading the agents? How were they guiding the agents? And for most of us, most agents in general, like the broker means well, they have good intentions, they want to help people, they want to, nurture people and love on people. But they're not willing to actually tell them what it's going to take to be successful because they're afraid that if they do, that person's going to leave or that person's never going to start to begin with, right? And they're judging themselves off of like agent count numbers and things like that. Like, my God, two people left this month. Why?
Vanity.
Well, because I told them that they had to make phone calls. It's like that's the wrong model, right? Like I remember sitting in an interview and trying to convince the first person that I brought on as a buyer's agent, like why he should join me as a buyer's agent. He asked like, "What's in it for you?" And I was like, "Oh, it's more time for me to do lead generation while you go out and work with all the buyers and all of this." And then the first day, I was like, "All right, you ready to make some phone calls?" He was like, "I thought you were going to make the phone calls and I was going to go work with the buyers." I was like, "Oh yeah, I did say that. That is okay. Yeah, let's do that." And then so now I'm not only the assistant, but I'm the ISA. And again, like you said, Jason, the glorified referral network on a 30% commission split or something like that, maybe a 40% is where we started. Um, basically, I mean, that's the worst deal that you can possibly give yourself as a team leader, right? You're the assistant, you're the ISA, you're doing all of these things to where they are your customer, right? And you're their assistant and you're delivering all of this value to them. And, the other thing I was thinking about the other day is like when somebody leaves your team, like how do they leave? How does that partnership dissolve? And it's like both people in a partnership, partnerships can end, right? That's fine. Both people should leave in a better spot than where they were when they got into the partnership, right? I can look at everybody who's come on my team and then left and even look at their business tangibly and be like, yeah, they're doing a lot better when they left the team than they were when they joined me or when I found them or they found me, whatever. But then I look at so many people that like have left my team or other teams, and it's like they were trying to leave the team in a worse place than it was when they came in, right? Like they're not going to benefit anything off of me being on the team for 6 months or 12 months or whatever it is. Like, God forbid that they have benefited from me being here after I'm gone. And that's a difference in mentality, obviously in the people that we're looking for on our teams, but even for us too. Like, do you want the people after they leave your team to go out there and be super successful, or do you want them to fall flat on their face because they needed you? Um, and I looked at that recently. Like, everybody's with you for a season or a reason. Um, at the end of that season, like, what is that really supposed to look like?
I always say,
I like to, I
yeah,
want to be the launch pad for people. I started my career on Brian's team, and now look at me, I'm crushing it, right? Not I
yeah,
was on this team for a while, and now I'm, you know,
my first
managing a Wendy's.
brokerage, my first very first team member, he has his own brokerage now. Like, and I love that. I tell
Yeah,
people that in the interviews because I mean yeah, that's a really really good point, and I like that. When you're in a partnership, you should leave it. Well, that's a leave it better than you found it principle. Mhm.
yeah, yeah,
I always say the goal of the team's not to keep you on the team forever. Eventually, it's fly, little birdie, fly. You know, the goal of the team is to do 2 things. One is to make you confident and competent in the job, so you know what you're doing. Number 2 is to, build your business pipeline so you could sustain it as a career after you're gone and learn those principles so then that you could run it and have a career out of it. But like I said, I want them to be better off for joining the team. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. So, um, let's go over the last 12 months. So let's say, think back to right before last spring. What has the business looked like? Where were you a year ago? Where are you today? And what's been the biggest challenge you've seen over the last year?
yeah. I was looking at that, and because we're starting to see like, and I don't know where everybody's like pulling their statistics, right? But you're starting to see agents that are like, we're up 200% from last year. I mean, I don't know. I'm probably up 300% from last year. I don't even know if I went back and looked at it, right? Like January last year was a really good month in terms of adding people to the team. And Chad, you and I have talked about this. And then like February was one of those months where I looked up and I was like, I had a couple cancellations and I don't think I had any closings in February. And that was the first month that I had without a closing in 7 years, right? It was nuts. So then I hit the ground running. And in April, I think we had, I don't even know, 15 closings or something like that that were mostly all me, right? So um, the team, a lot of the people that joined the team in January left the team in, March, April, May, right? Which was going to happen anyway. So I mean, it was just growth, growth, growth mode, right? So I don't, to look at where we were then, I think I was probably at like 16 members, and probably one or two of them are still with me today. Uh, Whereas today we're at 13 team members. Added number 14 actually today, or I'm in the process of onboarding number 14. We were up as high as 16, and then when we made the move over to EXP, we had a couple people stay behind, which was fine. And yeah, I mean January and February have been pretty good months.
So that's an interesting one. And of course, we talk all the time, but it's always good to hear like the real answer or the extrapolated answer. But like, so you're winning, you're growing, your business is up, you're adding team members. Why move brokerages? Because that could be a pain in the ass.
Good point. Good point. Yeah, I mean, and first of all, I know like that wasn't a pretty answer to the question, right? That was an honest answer. Like as far as knowing the numbers, and like th- so the number that I've been most focused on is how many people we're adding to the team, right? Um, that was my number one focus last year. Um, that's right now probably my number one focus right now. It's not my only focus, but it's that's top priority. Um, in terms of changing brokerages, it's the same thing. Go back to what Jason said. Not everybody's here for a season or a reason. The goal isn't to like lock them in for a lifetime. But the risk isn't in the company you're with, it's not in the money, it's not in any of those things. The risk is in the people that you're with, right? So if you got the right person on the right team and you guys are aligned in your values, your standards, all of that, then as that person outgrows the team is also growing. And maybe they don't outgrow the team, right? Maybe they become a director of sales, or maybe they have maybe it's just like running a squad within the team, right? Like you can continue to create opportunities for people on the team. And we've seen that with some of these other teams that are with EXP, most of them, and in other coaching circles that like we're part of, where they've got agents on their team who are making $1 million a year, or they're doing 200 transactions a year on it, as an agent on a team with buyers agents or showing agents under them, and they've got their own assistant or whatever that looks like, right? So the goal is to, you know, not is to keep raising that ceiling so that we're not holding back the people, that we're leading. So going back to the question with EXP, why make the move to EXP? I think it comes down to that, right? Being in an environment with people that are growing, right? In other companies, right? There's the trajectory is kind of locked in. Like you buy a franchise, open up your own franchise, whatever that looks like. For some people, that doesn't even look like progression, right? That looks like a step backwards. And that was me for the longest time. People are, you going to get your broker's license? You going to get, I don't want to do that. I don't want to open my own brokerage. I don't want to do all these things, right? I think that and I've always said this, like being a team leader, I think is the best opportunity in the business. EXP gave us an opportunity to focus on growing our team without hitting that ceiling of a brokerage or a franchise, because it's a much bigger organization. But then also looking at the people who have built big organizations inside of EXP and the organic growth, right? With a lot of these companies, you want to be a leader, you go out and you buy a franchise, or you get the person who bought the franchise to hire you and give you a management title. With EXP, there's no titles, right? Like these guys, like Matt and Dustin in the, what do they call it, Jason, Built for More community, and like Tyler and Fred, and they've got the next level agent community. Like these aren't corporate guys. Nobody gave them a title. Nobody said like, here's a Facebook group, go out and grow this, and you're going to get bonused on it, kind of thing, right? Now, there's obviously some incentive there with rev share and all of that, right? Which is great. But what that's done over the course of the 10 years, right? Like 10 years ago, I didn't see it, but I see now what that has done. And it's caused these leaders to become leaders organically and to grow these communities organically. Like if you want to go and create a massive organization in EXP, you get a real estate license, you go out there, you sell houses, and you help other people do the same thing. You create a community and it grows organically. And over time, you become the leader of this large community. You want to do that at any other company, you got to go out there and you got to strike a check and buy a building. And that doesn't necessarily make you a good leader.
Yes, 100%. Well, and it also makes me think, and then I might ruffle a couple of real estate agents' feathers with this one, but it makes me think a lot about the all the letters you can get behind your name, the CNE, the BRI, the
Yeah.
blah 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 XYZ
Yeah.
LMNOP stuff. Like I tell sellers at the appointment, I'm like, you can get a CNE and be a certified negotiation expert, but I've sold 1,000 homes in 10 years. Who do you think knows how to navigate a sale better, the one with the letters or the one with the results? And
One with time to sit in a classroom, or me. Yeah.
and but to that point, like that's one thing that I don't ever think about or haven't in a while is like how awesome it is that it isn't a title or a check or a thing. It's yeah, it's an environment, and there's other environments too, but an environment where leaders are building other leaders and create, that it's not just what your title is.
And
Yeah.
that has expanded well beyond EXP at this point, right? Like the fact that we're even here on this podcast, right? Like, um, Chad wasn't the manager of a company that I worked for, right? Chad was another agent in the same marketplace doing similar level of business that I was doing, that was growing his community and inviting people in, at a broker agnostic event. And I was probably one of the only people that wasn't from EXP at the time, but I was like, I'm going. Somebody's going to try to recruit me at this thing. I don't have to say yes. I don't plan on changing brokerages. I'm going to go and see. Like, they're not going to kill me. Like, they're not going to hold me down and make me join EXP. I'm going to go check this thing out. And then the relationship that's come out of that, you know, having you as a friend, but and also a leader, I look at you as a leader, like, nobody hired you, nobody told you, like, "Chad, you're gonna be a leader now," right? Like, you you just did it, like, and, you're following models too, right? And Jason, same with you, right? And, um, that's it, like, that's what EXP has grown organically over 10 years is leaders, like, they've built leaders, whereas, you know, again, some of these other companies, you can get that title that might have leader or manager in the title, but that doesn't equip you to go out there and actually lead people.
I see it with, last year I did an in-person event, which for the first year, it came out pretty great, and it was brand agnostic, right? Just agents, team leaders, broker owners contributing, give back, all your best secrets, right? Win-win. Everybody, that's short-sighted, all that kind of stuff. "Oh, it's just a recruiting event." There was no recruiting pitch. It was all just stuff of value. Everybody that went to it said they loved it. But what's the negative stereotype with EXP? It's like, "Oh, you're just trying to recruit." No, like you said, it's a community of leaders and leadership, and we're here to contribute, give back, and make a difference in people's life with or without us. And if you like what you see and you want to be part of it, great. There's room for everybody. We have an abundance mindset, but sometimes people have that stigma of, "Oh, well, you're just doing it just to do that," until they get in the rooms and they see what you're doing. And then I think that's where the mindset, shifts come in.
Yeah, and I mean, well, and there's always some bad apples at every brokerage. I mean, they all exist, so
Yeah.
there's going to be, and they can get bad taste here and there. But I think the key of it is always just coming with curiosity, and that's what you did, and because yeah, I mean, it's like um, Reside was just bought by LPT's founder. We're gonna have an event with him. Should I not be curious about what somebody who's made a lot of success has done? Like just because he ran the other thing? Like, no. And you hear how many of these people post? The people at the top are collaborating, and the people at the bottom are, but then they don't. You know what I mean? It's like
And then they don't,
And then
yeah.
they guard all their stuff. No, no, you can't.
only my team colors.
Yeah.
But, yeah, so I love that you came with that curiosity because of yeah, what it's for. Well, and and of course, obviously, yes, we like to recruit when you're in a position you have revenue share. Heck yeah, we like to do that, but at the same time, you had moved during our friendship to another brokerage, and
I
you
did,
called me
yep.
up. We were at the one mastermind. I loved it because I think you had said at one point, like, "Oh, I'm sorry I didn't, end up joining you," or something like that, and I was like, no, this is good because this will test if I'm full of shit, if I can actually,
Uh,
contribute
Yeah.
without obviously, if you're
uh-huh.
man, but I didn't plan on that. Yeah, so
And people think, I mean, obviously there's big rev share organizations in our company, but
right.
for the most part, I could go out and sell another freaking house, and I don't have to train or teach anybody anything. You know what I mean? I'll make more on that than any kind of rev share on it. I'm not making rev share is just a bonus. So many times
It's an
people.
alignment vehicle for people that you're like-minded with in the business, like, that we can partner up together
Yeah.
if you choose to. Yeah, like, do you wanna put some money behind this partnership and do it more regularly, or do you wanna just keep it chill? Like, and that's it.
Well, I think the other part of it is too, though, like even again, like I had no doubt in my mind why Chad was hosting that event, right? Like it was a recruiting event, right? But again, I was curious enough that it was like they're not going to force me to join. What value can I get out of it in the meantime? If you look at the value that somebody will give in these environments in EXP, right? Of course, it's not the case with every person who's been recruited by somebody at EXP or any other company. But when I look at you guys and I look at Tyler and I look at like Matt Smith and all of these guys, the amount of value that they're putting out there to build these communities as an attraction funnel or whatever it is way, way, way above and beyond the money that they're getting back from rev share, right? So it's like, yes, I'm okay getting into your recruiting funnel because I know how much value that I'm going to get out of it, right? Because I know who you are as a person, or I'm curious about who you are as a person. When you're aligning yourselves with the right people, you stop looking at like, well, what are they getting out of this relationship? I'm looking at what am I getting out of their, to the point where like I told Chad, I'm like, I'm so sorry I didn't join your organization. I feel like you've got nothing out of this, relationship. And of course, I think that was like probably early on in our relationship or our friendship
2
Um,
years. I think 2 years actually. I think we were there 2 years ago now.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, so it was like recruiting event, and then I was in your email funnel, and then Chad would call me and be like, "Hey, I saw you open my email," in a less creepy way, but I knew what he was doing. He was practicing what he was preaching, right? He would literally teach a class on like send people an email and then call them when they answer it, and then I'd answer his email, and then he'd call me 5 minutes later, right? So I was like, "This is sweet. I know exactly what this dude's doing, and it's awesome to see him actually doing what he's talking about doing," right? And then that turned into "Hey, Chad, I'm sorry I'm moving companies and I didn't even tell you. I'm not but like I already knew everything I needed to know about EXP. I feel bad, I didn't even tell you I was moving." Went to the other company and he was like, "Cool." Like, and I've got a Facebook post. I don't know if I posted this in the last couple weeks, but I got a Facebook post about this because I remember that conversation when Chad was like, this is great. This is a really," like, the tone of his voice wasn't like, "This is great," but he was like, "This is great." He was convincing himself because now I get to test out if all the stuff that I'm saying is actually true, right? About not being attached to the outcome, about putting out there and contributing without expecting to get back. And he
It's
called himself out, like he shined a spotlight on it and he put accountability on it. Like, this is watch me do what I said I was gonna do, like, help me keep an eye on myself here and on my ego and make sure that I'm gonna do what I'm gonna do. We went to the Maverick event down in Memphis, hung out down there, and then I would say at that point is when, like, the actual friendship really, like, kicked off, um, and hopefully by now you've gotten a little bit of value out of it, but I joined EXP just to sweeten the deal a little bit for you
yeah, icing on top. No, 100%, but
3 years later.
I mean, if an agent is watching this and you go, "Okay, well, they're just talking about, like, here's what you need to look at. What does your follow-up look like with the leads and the buyers and
Yeah.
sellers that you're talking to? Like,
Yeah.
like, how are you detaching from the outcome?" Because, like, and I said this in my meeting and then or last month, and I think it's important to say to all agents listening, like, you guys don't get what you want out of somebody when they don't buy or and you'll stop talking to them or you're ignoring them or respond and it's not in the answer that like, "Hey, I'm ready to go see a house tomorrow," and you're slow back. So you just got found out, and all you cared about was the money. And
Mhm.
I'm not saying money's not important. Of course, we're in a for-profit business, but it's funny how it works with that law. Like you just demonstrated, you heard Brian say the law of reciprocity there. It's not
Yeah.
like it's not about getting Brian. It's about just showing that you're truly coming from contribution and you felt the need to apologize for not giving anything back. Well, the leads on the other end are the same thing.
Yeah.
It's the same thing.
Yeah. That was the equivalent of me calling and saying, "Chad, I bought a house and I didn't use you as my agent.
There you go.
Will you come to will you still come to the housewarming in March?" Yeah.
Right, because I'm sure that's the only transaction they'll ever do in their life, and I'm sure they know nobody else is gonna do any real estate transactions, and I'm sure we've never heard the stat that one sale is like 4% of what the value is of a client over a lifetime, you know what I mean? None of that stuff applies,
There you
just
go.
that one greedy sale that we wanted. That's really good. Well, as we roll towards the end of this here, let me ask you, what's your outlook for the future?
What's my outlook?
Future of your
Like, what's
business.
my vision? Um, my 10-year vision that, at this point we're 2.5 years into, um, is to run an organization or a company that's doing $1 billion in revenue. I don't know what that looks like, in terms of it'll be something related to real estate. Is that a real estate sales organization, a team? Is that, who knows? Especially with like AI and all of that stuff. Maybe one of my lovable websites will take off and I'll be a tech guru. Who knows? Uh, just kidding. Um, yeah. The 3-year vision was to build a team with this is funny too, Jason. You'll like this. 50 agents that sell 1,000 homes a year. And the reality is I probably need 100 plus agents to sell 1,000 homes a year. And I'm 2 years into that 3-year vision also. So still building and still looking to get to that 50 agents a year by the end of this year. And to keep going after that to get to those levels. Again, if I'm tracking one major number right now, it's how many people can we bring into this environment as agents. and help them expand, expand their environment, expand their mindset, expand their lifestyle, and then go out and do the same thing and help buyers and sellers expand, expand their lifestyles and their environments. That doesn't look like that's going to be 1,000 next year, but we've got a plan and we're going to stick to it.
So in Pittsburgh, if somebody wants to send you a referral or link up with you or do whatever, where would they go?
Link up with me on Facebook is probably the best place, honestly. Bryan Reilly on Facebook. I'm on there. I'm active. Um, and of course, you can find links to my team page and all of that stuff on there if you got actual business or want to send referrals or anything like that.
Really good. So the last thing I'm going to ask you here, the send off, if you go back in time and you could only have one thing you could tell your new real estate self, what would you tell yourself at the beginning of this journey?
KFR.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
100%. Yeah. 100%.
Love it. If you know, you know. Um, well, thanks everybody for tuning in. Jason and I are on the quest to hit 100 episodes here. I think this was 85, so we're about 15 away. We're gonna hit it. But I hope everybody got some value today. We love real estate. It's changed our lives, and we want to do that for others too. So, thanks for tuning in. We'll catch you on the next one.